Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy Jay Mace, aka Jarrell Mason. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Album Cover, where we get inside the entertainment industry with those in the know, give them their flowers while they're here to be celebrated. With me right now, I have my brother Free from Entouch. You can go catch the throwback interview on Beyond the Album Cover, where we talk about the history of Entouch and everything. But we're going to talk about history of music, hip hop at 50, the brand new single, FaceTime Breakdown, amongst other things. Free, welcome back to the podcast, bro.
My brother Jay, how are you?
Man, I'm doing good, man. And for those that don't know, we had been planning this interview for a while, but we had a lot of starts and stops. But we finally here. We made it, man.
Yeah, and let me apologize in advance because I'm a little bit under the weather, but I wasn't going to postpone this anymore. We was going to get it done today.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you doing that for us. So let's just go ahead and just start off the rip. Before we get into the new single, I want to talk to you about with hip hop turning 50, we're seeing a lot of celebrations in and around the country, especially the big one that took place back in August, I believe, at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, the home
Yeah,
of
I was
hip hop.
supposed to go to that. I got sick and couldn't go. Matter of fact, I was supposed to go to the Force the night before, and then Yankee Stadium the next night. I had my boys flying in from Nashville because they had never been to nothing like that. And I got sick and had to go to the emergency room. But I made sure they got into the fourth show. But and I missed the next one at Yankee Stadium because I was in the hospital for like 3-4 days. But yeah, it's been a wonderful year for hip hop, and there's so many of my idols growing up that I'm getting to see them really get their shine right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely good to see the elders finally get their flowers, especially those who are little known but are now getting the recognition. But it's just my hope as a lover of music to keep that energy up after this year. And I know they're starting to build the Universal Hip Hop Museum, and you have the
Shout
show
shout
Hip
to
Hop
Rocky
Treasure.
Bacano.
Go ahead.
Shout to Rocky Bacano. He's the chairman of the Hip Hop Museum. And I've known Rocky my entire life. We grew up in the same neighborhood, the Valley in the Bronx. And he's behind this whole thing.
Nice, nice. I definitely got to make my trip there to go ahead and see that
Matter
when
of
it
fact,
finally gets done.
let me say it on air now so you can hold me to it. I'm going to try to hook it up, an interview with you and him.
Okay, bet,
All right?
bet. And with the show Hip Hop Treasures, you see LL, various hip hop luminaries getting collectibles and
Mm-hmm.
artifacts to get placed into the museum. And for me, it was very refreshing to see Pete Nice doing
Yeah.
it. And for
He
those
runs the
that don't know,
museum. He runs the day to day at the museum.
oh wow.
But because the museum's not open yet, but he had an annex
Mm-hmm,
right across the street from where the museum is going to be in the South Bronx.
mm-hmm.
And I was just with Pete and Rocky and Paradise and Kaz and all of them. They just had like a closing ceremony for that hip hop week,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to that. So I just got to see all them cats.
Nice. And for those that don't know Paradise, look up X Clan, and Pete Nice, look up Third Base, especially the Cactus album.
Absolutely, one of the most underrated hip hop albums ever.
Legendary. And then, of course, if you look at the video for the Gas Face, you
Mm-hmm.
have the late MF Doom when he was formerly known as Zella of X from the group KMD.
Yeah, and we was all on Electra together.
Oh wow.
Us and KMD. We was on Electra together because that was in Touch's home as well. And
Right.
I didn't know for years that was MF Doom. I didn't know. My daughter told me.
Wow.
And I was
Yeah.
like, I know him since he was a kid.
Wow. And I went back and listened to the KMD album that had Peach Fuzz on it. It felt
Mm-hmm.
like they were very good, but just Electra didn't know what to do with them because it was kind of like you're kind of in the middle of kind of what De La Soul and the whole Native Tongues movement was doing, but they had their own lane, style, and sound.
Absolutely. And if they were part of Native Tongue, if they was like officially part of that movement, that album would have did much better.
Mm-hmm.
It would have. But that was Dante Ross signed him, and who was always ahead of the curve with his ears. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a little bit early, but he did sign Busta Rhymes and Leaders of the New School. He did sign Grand Puba and wow, Grand Nubian. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
he was ahead of the curve.
Right. Shout out to Dante Ross. For those that know, Dante Ross, legendary record industry executive of the legendary label Tommy Boy, one of the most iconic hip hop, dance, R&B labels of all time. Now, when I was looking at, I believe it was last year or so, when Annie did the special about different artists with hip hop, and I was looking at the Buster episode, and I believe Leaders of the New School was coming up under Public Enemy, and
Yeah.
there was a story being related that there was another group that was coming up under PE, and they had to do a battle for the name of Leaders of the New School,
I
and
heard
that
that same
group
story.
was Young Black Teenagers. Yes,
Yeah.
Cameron, aka Jamal from House Party 2, and DJ
Mm-hmm.
Scribble tapped the bottle.
Yeah. It's crazy because you can remember all around that time, that's when Too Hype was out. So I was doing shows with all these guys, and and I got to know Chuck and them pretty well. And Keith Shockley is my man. Like me and him used to rock heavy. And I was around them, and like when I first saw the picture of the Young Black Teenagers, it was the funniest thing in the world to me. I was like, yo, this is irony and parody at its best. But homie could really rhyme. The little dude, what did you say his name was?
Cameron, aka
Cameron.
Jamal from House
Yeah.
Party 2. So shout
Yeah,
out to
he could
Young
really
Black
rhyme.
Teenagers, man. Yeah, they were really dope. And I really felt they should have gotten enough push. And then also too, one thing that's been bugging me with the hip hop at 50th celebrations, we're seeing everybody being talked about, but this man, if it wasn't for him, rap wouldn't be pop. Why has he not been on any of these shows performing? I don't know. I'm talking about Stanley Burrell, aka MC Hammer.
I think when they do a West Coast thing, he'll be on that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people here respected Hammer's success, but the music didn't really resonate here. Not like NWA did, not like Dre did, not like Snoop did. It just didn't resonate on this side of the world. People had respect for his success. You know what I mean? And there was no doubt you did want to follow him on stage. I did shows, Entouch did shows with MC Hammer. And we knew we had to do what we had to do because he was coming to tear it down. And I always had super respect for him. But, it was just a different thing, man. And unfortunately, I don't think they ever, at that time, it was about bars here, bro. You know what I mean? And Ice Cube had bars. You know what I mean? And what he was writing for Dre was bars. And hold up, what's my other man who was in NWA? I can't remember his name right now. You know who I'm talking about.
MC Ren?
Yes. To me, he was the one. He was my favorite in the group at the time. They had bars. These cats were spitting. And, MC Hammer was an amazing entertainer. And no one can deny that he kicked open doors of hip hop that no one did before him.
Right. And that whole movement in hip hop coming out the Bay, with him, E40, Too Short, and then you're now seeing it with G-Eazy and everybody else coming out of the Bay Area, all of them kind of their respect.
I've always been a big Digital Underground fan.
Oh, rest in peace, Shock G.
Like that cat was a musical genius and people don't talk about it. Like he played I played 7 instruments, bro. And I think he played as many instruments as I did.
Wow.
And I mean, not just like tinkering around, he was proficient on all of them. You know what I mean? And there would be no Tupac, man.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for him.
Yeah, definitely not. Started out as a roadie. Then, of course, we all know what happened next with Tupac in his solo career. But you mentioned earlier about how there was a difference in hip hop between what was coming out on the West Coast and what was coming out in New York. So it was kind of rare to see West Coast acts come to the East Coast, collaborate, and vice versa. LL went and got the LA Posse for the Bigger and Deffer album.
Battle Cat in them, yeah.
Yeah, DJ Battle Cat and all those guys. So what would you say back during that time period was the main difference between New York hip hop and what was coming out West?
I'm going to keep it a whole buck with you. New Yorkers, we were assholes. We were just snobs. We were assholes. If it ain't from here, it ain't real hip hop. You know what I mean? I was there the night Ice Cube got his stripes in New York. He played the Apollo when his first solo album came out, bro. And when I tell you he tore that bitch down, I mean down. Everybody just had to give it up. Everybody had to submit. I was a little more progressive than a lot of my boys. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But he earned it, and people really started listening. And then NWA, we rocked with NWA here.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had never heard nothing like that. The closest thing we had to that, I don't know. Have you ever heard of Mob Style?
Mom style, no. Fill me in.
Mob Style, what? Well, you seen the movie Paid in Full, right?
Correct.
AZ and them turned into a rap group. Alpo wasn't in the group, but it was AZ, Pretty Tone, and a couple other cats. They had a group called Mob Style that was like an East Coast NWA.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have the success that NWA had, but honestly, the records wasn't as good. But it was very much the same thing. But NWA had nothing but respect in New York.
Mm-hmm.
E40 always had cats from New York. We respected him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And come on, man, Short Dog, come on. How can you not? No one in the world says bitch like that man.
Nope. That's his favorite word.
No, nobody. You know what I mean? So it's New York because we were assholes for a long time, bro.
Yeah, and it's kind of good to see now you don't really have that regionalism to where you're kind of looking down on other regions saying like, oh, if it ain't from here, I'm not playing it. It's where everybody is really into what everybody is putting out. It was almost the same approach when everything that was coming out of Atlanta was starting to break outside of the South. And once Outkast really broke through with Southern Playalistic, and that opened everybody's eyes to what was coming out of the South. As to now, you're seeing with hip hop being the most listened to genre of music in the world, everybody is just taking and pulling from different regions of the country and different parts of the globe.
Yeah. I mean, well, you got to remember the very platform that we're on now changed everything. You know what I mean? It changed everything. It made the world a much smaller place.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when I was growing up, I would know records in New York that they wouldn't know down south. They would have records down south that I didn't know in New York. And the beautiful thing about going to travel is that you would hear. I remember when Entouch went on our first tour, we had a song on the album called Two Steps to the Right, a ballad.
Mm-hmm.
We had no idea that it was a hit in certain cities. And
Right.
it wasn't even in our set.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd be in the show and the promoter would be like, yo, y'all got to do Two Steps to the Right. What are you, crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And we hadn't rehearsed it or nothing. So we had to wing it. And then we had to add it into the show because we got to places like Kansas City, New Mexico, Chicago. They were stepping to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, but that's gone. The internet changed all that.
Yeah, it definitely made the world smaller. And how you mentioned Ice Cube turned the Apollo out, and I believe the first album was America's Most Wanted, right?
Yes, sir.
And
That
that was
album,
and that was
salute.
yep, and that was done by Bomb Squad.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing that gave him a good look in New York. He was smart enough to go, you know what? Let me go get these cats. Because I'm going to get my love on the West Coast because I'm from there. And let me go get the hottest producers of the moment on the East Coast, which was the Bomb Squad.
Right. Yeah. Bomb
Mm-hmm.
Squad, man. And Hank Shockley, Keith Shockley, Eric Sadler. I mean, their stuff, but why I bring up Bomb Squad is because I don't know if you had a chance to see the documentary that Michael Bivins just dropped, The Hustle at 617 Mike Biv. I saw it too. And how, they took Poison, gave it to the Bomb Squad, gave it that hip hop feel, that hip hop sound, and that's why it still is a money record to this day. You can throw Poison on in the club set.
Let's keep it funky about Poison though.
Go ahead.
And I've actually heard this from like the New Edition camp, BBD camp personally. They heard Too Hype and said we can do that. Jimmy and Terry heard Too Hype and was like, "You're damn sure can do that." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, because if you play Poison and Too Hype next to each other, it's the same energy. It's all hip hop samples. You know, I mean, we played a little bit more instruments on it, but it was all the same energy. It wasn't no real singing on it. And it's one of the records, and they were from New Edition, so that helped it propel it even further. I mean, and I'm not hating at all,
right.
But we were like, and I didn't even realize it to Keith Shot. I did a panel. Excuse me, my nose is running. I did a panel with Keith Shockley, Large Professor, Easy Moby, and a couple other producers. And they broke it down to me. I didn't even really understand it. Like, yo, like Too Hype changed the game. They didn't know how to categorize you guys. They didn't know if y'all was rappers, if y'all was singers. They didn't know because there was nothing like it before. Y'all took what Teddy was doing and made it harder. And no one had ever heard nothing like that. Now, we never thought of it like that. We was just like, we're doing what we like.
Yeah, yeah. And
You know
I
what I
want
mean?
to talk about how, for me, that New Jack Swing era, very influential, monumental in not only hip hop and R&B, but music, period. Because like I tell people all the time, hip hop and R&B were on two separate sides of the floor. And they came together and merged. Although I would say Full Force was tinkering around with it and kind of sort of having the
They were the first.
Yep.
They were the first.
Yeah, they were with
absolutely the first.
Yeah, with their work, UTFO, Lisa
Alice,
Cold Jam, and
remember that song Alice?
Yeah, shout out to Howie T.
Oh, absolutely, shout out to Howie T. Yeah, I mean, but you gotta remember, we just all from the hood, man. So no matter how, like my two biggest influences in the world growing up was probably like, it was hip hop before there was records. I'm just talking about the cassette tapes when we would go to the T Connection and the Fever and the Ecstasy Garage, the Black Door, Celebrity Club at Harlem. I was 11 and 12 going to these parties.
Wow.
So I saw all these cats. You know what I mean? So it was like, so that was a major influence. And on the other side, for me, it was Prince. Prince and the time and all that. So very much what you heard musically come out of Entouch was pretty much those two things. Because a lot of people forget, Eric was a pioneer in hip hop. Eric McCain is a pioneer. He was one of the Infinity Four rappers down with, you had to heard of DST, the guy that did the scratches on Rocket with Herbie Hancock.
Yes.
And he was in his crew. He was on the first hip hop tour to ever go to Europe with Bambaataa in New York City. And they don't talk about Eric enough with that. And it kind of makes me salty because they don't give him his props, how he transitioned from hip hop. And you got to remember, our first hit record was a club house record. And then for us to do Too Hyping All Night, we did 4 different genres within 4 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know if I asked you this last interview. Whose idea was it to use the Groove Me sample for Too Hype?
Eric. That was Eric McCain. He played it for me. He was like, yo. And before he even finished the sentence, I was like, dude, we got to. Everybody knows that sample. Everybody, our parents, our grandparents, everybody knew that sample. But you know what the craziest thing about Too Hype is? You could do the Sookie Sookie part. You could go to Too Hype. You could do all that. And somebody may not know what you talk about. But the second you say, put on my best, can't believe that, they know the record.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. Like the first, the Too Hype is the most popular thing about Too Hype. It's weird.
Yeah, because I think that was a record that Fat Joe and Tony Sunshine did, and they sampled the chorus for that. And then Jason Weaver did it for the Stay With Me remix.
Cameron did it, used it too. Cam used it. That other cat who was out. Like 5, 6, 7 people used it, and no one's used the beat. I heard rumor and actually heard like a light demo of Chris Brown messing around with it. But I don't think he ever got it to the point he wanted to get it. But people use it every 2 years or so. I'm getting a check from somebody who used it.
Right. Yeah, man. That's the gift that keeps on giving. Now back to the New Jack Swing. Now with Teddy, when Guy's album came out in 88, and then prior to that, Make It Last Forever in 87, and then also in 88 too, you had I'll Be Sure, In Effect Mode, then New Edition, the Heartbreak album, and you guys been in the middle of all of that. What was that like, finally seeing like, oh, we get to hear hip hop beats over R&B records?
We never really considered ourselves part of the New Jack movement. We always felt like the ostracized bastard child of it. You know what I mean? Because we didn't sound like Teddy and them. You know what I mean? We didn't sound like Al. Now all of them had an influence in our production, but we didn't go after that exact sound. Perfect example. You'll enjoy. You love these stories. So after we did Touch and we did Without You, and it was such a big hit, that label went out of business, and me and Eric locked ourselves in the house for like a month and did like 11-song demo, and they started traveling around. Now, have you ever heard the name Timmy Regisford?
Yep.
Okay, Timmy was a big deal at MCA. He did the New Edition shit, helped with the old Uptown album. He worked under Gerald Bugsby and all that. And he was the man in the New York office. He wanted us to sign the MCA. And then Vincent Davis came along. He said he was in the barbershop and cats was talking about, yo, them cats touched, left their label. He tracked it. He had his people track us down the next day. So we had a little bidding war going on. And this is how we ended up going with that. Now, Vincent had Keith Sweat, and Keith Sweat was the hottest thing in the world at the time. So what we did, and Timmy wanted us to come to MCA, but he wanted us to be part of that whole thing with Teddy and Gene Griffin.
Oh, Today and all of that.
Yeah, he wanted us to be part of that. And me and Eric was like, we're not going nowhere where we don't produce ourselves. We don't need to be produced. We do that ourselves. So that's how we ended up going with Entertainment Electric.
Wow, I definitely did not know that. And then for those that don't know too, how I mentioned Today, I believe they were originally signed to MCA, but what ended up happening was when Gerald Busby ended up leaving MCA to go over to Motown, he took Today, The Boys, and The Good Girls with him over to Motown to be the new, respectively, Four Tops, Jackson 5, and Supremes.
And the Bub is my man. To me, he's one of the most underrated R&B voices ever.
I call him hip hop Luther Vandross.
Yeah. He absolutely insane with it. Same way Christopher Williams was the R&B, the young Teddy Pendergrass.
Yeah, I felt like with Christopher Williams, the first album that he put on Geffen, it was all right. But once he got on Uptown and hit that Changes album, I think that was where he found his stride.
Absolutely. I mean, but I'll never forget. Chris was this here at my house last week. As a matter of fact, on my new project, he's one of the singers on it. So we just cut his song here at the studio in the house last week. And I think I told you, I've known Chris since kindergarten. Like we grew up together our entire lives. And I'll never forget Joski Love. You remember Joski Love?
Pee Wee Dance.
Yes. He's family to me. So he called me one day, I'll never forget this, and he goes, yo, why is Albie Shore singing Bobby Brown's song on Video Music Box? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I put on Video Music Box because I didn't know Chris' single came out. Because if you remember, Entouch and Chris came out like 4 weeks apart. We all got our deals at the same time. And I turned it on. It was Chris doing I Talked to Myself. And I was like, they definitely went after my prerogative.
Exactly.
And everybody thought it was Albie Shore.
Yeah, exactly. And shout out to Christopher Williams too. If you ever want to come on, Chris, you got a spot. But
I'm going to see if I can make that happen for you.
Yeah. But the Changes
I was talking to him earlier today.
Yeah, but the Changes album and every little thing you do, if you listen to the backing vocals, I believe is Monica and Tara from The Girls, another underrated group that should have gotten much love, much more than what they should have. And you can catch my throwback interview with Monica and Tara from The Girls.
Which leads me back to we can't mention all that without mentioning Kanye West. God bless the dead. Because Kyle West. Sorry, Kyle West. God bless the dead. Because Al did his thing, but Kyle West was amazing, dog.
Mr. Break It Down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kyle West, he never got his props because he was an amazing producer.
Nope. And you can catch my throwback interview with him on Beyond the Album Cover as well, where he talks about the making of In Effect Mode, early Tevin Campbell, discovering Jodeci. And also with that time period, I consider these guys more R&B than what most people would say. They cut their teeth in R&B, but as you and I know, when that pop machine get a hold, things change. And I'm talking about New Kids on the Block, because I know Donnie and those guys, they cut their teeth doing R&B shows, rap shows. I mean, Please Don't Go Girl, they did a video that only got play on BT, Video Music Box, and urban outlets before pop really came and took hold of them.
I mean, but Donnie gives his props. Whenever I see him in interview, he says, yo, we was just trying to be New Edition. That's all we were trying to do. You know what I mean? And I you can't do nothing but respect that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely that. I had a chance to interview Danny, and Danny was echoing everything Donnie said. New Edition was the blueprint for us. We grew up, right down the street from them. And we just pretty much wanted to take what they were doing, add our own spin, our own flavor to it. And I want to circle back around to Teddy and to think how it all started when he was in Kids at Work. Him and original guy member Timmy
Tim Gatlin.
Gatlin. You can catch my throwback interview with him as well. Shout out to Alton
I saw
Wokey
that
Stewart.
one.
What up, Wokey? And how you could kind of sort of hear what was going with Kids at Work, but really once Guy really took hold, I think that's where Teddy really found his groove.
Oh, absolutely.
Found his stride once he got Aaron, and then of course later Damon came in and ended up replacing Timmy when Timmy exited Guy.
Well, you know, there's been certain producers who just changed the whole face of music. Teddy was one of them. Timbaland is one of them. Pharrell is one of them. There's not a whole lot of them, man. There's a handful. Dre, the cats from down south, the Dungeon Crew. These cats changed the face of music, and we talk about them. We got to talk about all the trap producers too. They changed the face. Beethoven. What's homie's name on the beat? I feel horrible. I feel so old when I don't know anything.
Are you talking about Metro Boomin?
Yeah, Metro Boomin. You know what I mean? These cats changed the landscape.
Right. Right. And speaking of producers, you know, Nas just wrapped up a great 6-album run with producer Hit Boy, the 3 King's Disease albums, and the 3 Magic albums. Magic 3 just dropped just recently. I don't know if you know this, but do you know that Hit Boy's uncle is Rodney from Troop?
Had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Hit Boy's uncle is a Rodney Benford from Troop.
Had no, and you know, I think we toured with Troop more than anybody. You know, we was always doing shows, and you know, going on stage before or after Troop was no easy feat, bro.
Yeah, Troop was the West Coast New Edition. For me, for my top male groups, for me, New Edition is one. Troop is right there. I mean, the Spread My Wings video, classic choreo.
Spread My Wings is one of my top 3 favorite records of all time.
Definitely.
That right next to Tender Love. Spread My Wings and Tender Love were 2 of my favorite records of all time.
Right. Now, I don't know if you know this little backstory about Spread My Wings. I interviewed Chucky Booker, and Chucky told me that Turned Away was originally supposed to be a Troop record.
Yeah. I heard that too.
But what ended up happening was he played it for Sylvia Rome, who was head of Atlantic at the time. And she told him, this is going on your album. He tried to convince her this is a Troop record. She wouldn't budge off of it. And he told the guys, Sylvia said, I got to keep it for me. And they were like, nah, we want a record similar to that. And that's how we got Spread My Wings. Rodney confirmed it when I interviewed him. John confirmed it, you know, when I interviewed him. And Steve confirmed it again when he did his interview with the R&B Money podcast with Tank and Jay Valentine.
Yeah, I saw that one too. I was closest to John out of everybody in Troop. Me and him would like just sit down and build for a long time. But they were, you know, Spread My Wings. I would come out my dressing room, whether we went on before or after them, and I would, when I knew that song was coming in their set, I would be on the side of the stage every night.
Yeah, Troop definitely tore the stage down, made it hard for any group that was going to come on after them on a show. Like, you want to get some of this smoke?
They sang like there wasn't no tracks. They were singing and doing all that dancing.
Yeah, they were some dancing fools. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. He had one record. It was a single, never released the album. He was signed to Uptown, but Néstor Velasquez.
I know Néstor for years, bro. There's 2 Latin R&B acts that should have gone through the roof. One was Néstor, and the other, it starts with an M.
Are you talking about Mario Vasquez?
No. In this group, Tony Perez was in this group.
They were with Prince Markie D and Corey Rooney.
Yes.
Now I realize. Yes.
Have you ever heard that album?
Yeah, I heard Tracks Make You Climb 18 and Over. I want to say this right now. I've been beating this drum for years. Prince Markie D should have gotten more love as a producer and a songwriter. But I think what happened was everybody was still seeing them as fat boys, but not really taking them seriously as a producer, songwriter with the work him and Corey was doing.
And him and Corey was the perfect blend for each other. You know what I mean? But yeah, Menagerie, dog, one of my favorite. I still have the cassette of that somewhere in my house.
Yeah, I had a chance to interview Nesto, and he
Mm-hmm.
explained the whole situation as to why the album didn't come out and everything. Because to me, when I first heard Personality, to me,
Mm-hmm.
he sounded vocally like Christopher Williams.
No, they did. Very, very. And that's when, you gotta remember, that's when Uptown was going through their stuff with Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So, they was like, okay, we stick this pretty dude in here to take the place of that pretty dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, this is sucky business, bro. You gotta love it. It's an abusive relationship.
That's what I hear. And then also too, Nestor also told me that he was originally supposed to have been in Barrio Boys.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was really supposed to be in Barrio Boys, and I think when I interviewed Joe Jacket said the same thing, that he was originally supposed to have been in Barrio Boys, but he ended up going to Uptown and cutting Personality. But let's talk about the legacy and impact of Uptown, what the late Andre Harrell did for taking hip hop, R&B, making it classy, making it glamorous, and then of course the young Sean Combs, Diddy
That was the
Combs.
smartest thing Dre did, to take Puff underneath his wing, because he saw the hunger in Puff. You know how I met Puff? I don't
Go
know
ahead,
if I
tell us, please.
It was maybe the summer of '88. It was right before, or maybe the summer of '89, right before Too Hype came out. And you remember they used to have Jack the Rapper in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me and Dougie have been friends, Dougie Fresh. We've been friends since high school. My music teacher at Truman High School in the Bronx was his manager. So we was always crazy cool. So we saw each other down there, and we had just performed Too Hype. And he was like, yo, I didn't know. So we're standing in the crowd talking, and he was like, yo, I just got a new telephone number. Let me give you my number. And he never moved his hands. I'm like, nigga, what you gonna do? Give it to me telepathically? Like what? And this little skinny dude with a high top fade popped up out from behind him. It's like, yo, here's his number, Free. Nice to meet you, man. And blah 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 blah. And Doug was like, oh, this my man Puff. He's like my assistant now. And that's how I met him.
Wow.
He was Doug's assistant. Like if you think about it, Puff always looks out for Doug. Always.
Yeah.
What he's involved in, if it's a major party, Doug is the host. Like he makes sure, because Doug looked out for him.
Yeah, and when Puff got fired from Uptown, started Bad Boy, and you hear everything that was coming out of Bad Boy during that peak period, it was just a remix version of what was going on at Uptown.
But what you got to remember is that Puff wasn't getting credit at first for the ideas he was coming up with. The first thing that he got credit for was the Come and Talk to Me remix. That's the first thing I heard. But from day one, he was there. He was whispering in everybody's ears. And I was dating someone who worked at MCA at the time. So I was always in the building. And that's how I got, that's how me and Aaron got cool, because Entertainment was considered the enemy to Uptown, because as well as they was doing, Keith Sweat outsold everybody. And then Too Hype came out and changed the landscape.
Right.
We may not move as many units as them, but we changed the entire vibe. Right. And so, but I was cool with everybody. I had no problems with nobody. I remember meeting Jodeci when they first got here from down south. We was all at a party at Andre's house. But Puff was hugely responsible. And the genius of Andre was listening to Puff. That was the genius of Andre, and he had a vision. He came into it with a vision. And Puff put steroids in that vision, and still, come on. That Love album is the best R&B album I've heard in the past 3-4 years. Bro.
Yeah, I listened to that album, and to me, it felt like an updated version of what was going on at Bad Boy.
Yeah. Yeah. Great songwriting, great production. It was conceptual. It wasn't just a bunch of songs being thrown together. I listened to that album the day it came out. I listened to it 3 times back to back.
Man, but while we're on Bad Boy, let's talk about the Hitman.
Oh, that crew was
Tony Dofat, Easy Mo B.
Hold up, Tone, Bronx Cat. Tone is a Bronx Cat. I always got to give shout to my Bronx Cats. Tone was from White Plains Road. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tony Dofat, Easy Mo B, Harv Pierre, D-Dot, Stevie J, Jack Knight, Amin Ra, the late Chucky Thompson.
Yes, sir.
And also, I believe Mary Brown was kind of up in the mix in Bad Boy,
writing
doing
and
some
stuff,
songwriting and everything. And for those that don't know, Mary Brown, Abstract, Eminem, go back and look at the Groove Me video. The three girls in the back,
Yep.
that was Abstract.
Yep. You know your stuff. I'm impressed.
I mean, I'm a historian, man. I mean, I was one of those kids that sat in front of the TV, watched Video Soul, read Jet Magazine, watched Soul Train, Video Soul religiously. You know, I love this stuff, and to keep it preserved and alive. This is why I have the platform that I have. I may not have the biggest views, such as the biggest podcast. It's not about clickbait. It's about love for me. It's getting out the mud and just giving folks their flowers, why they're here to be celebrated, and also letting everybody know, like, hey, I know my stuff. I'm just not getting on here just to get on here and just talk.
You know who I would love for you to have a conversation with? If you and Questlove got on camera together, it would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I had a chance to interview Sugar Steve from Questlove Supreme. It was really dope. But yo, if I could, get in the room with Questlove, it would be very much like two music nerds just really just having a full-on conversation. And that would definitely be dope. So Questlove, if you're listening or watching,
you should send it to his people. You should pitch it and send some of your shows. I think he would have an appreciation for you.
Come on, Quest. I'm looking for you. Now, with rap being 50, as we're recording this on Friday, October the 6th. On October 10th, 11th, and 12th, BT, in conjunction with Mass Appeal, that's Nas's company, they're going to be doing a 3-part documentary series about Rap City. So can we talk about the legacy and impact of Rap City, from Chris Thomas, Prince Du Jour, Joe Claire, Big Les, Tigger, Mad Link, and how Rap City pretty much was one of the landmark shows that gave BT its stamp of approval in hip-hop?
Well, first, let me say this, and it's no slight to Rap City, but all that is a shined up, bigger budget version of Video Music Box. That's all it was. You know what I mean? Ralph couldn't afford a set, so he had to go to where the parties were. But they looked at Video Music Box after not giving Ralph a deal, because he tried. And Ralph is one of my closest friends in this industry.
Yeah, shout out to Uncle Ralph.
Ralph McDaniels. I call him the key master to hip hop, because whatever you need on anybody, he has the film. Believe that.
Yeah, I saw the documentary that they did. You're now watching Video Music Box, and how he still has the archives.
He does.
Just sitting. And I'm like, this must be preserved.
He has my 25th birthday party. And it's funny because it was supposed to come on the week after the party, and everybody was there. Puff, everybody was there. And he lost the tape and found it maybe 2 years ago.
Wow. And the crazy thing about Video Music Box, pre-internet, you just kind of heard about it because it was just a regional thing. If
you had a cousin in New York or something, they would tell people about it or send video tapes of it. But that was, we would run home from school, bro. Like, because it came on 3:00 every day. Yeah. And we run home from school because that's the only place we could see it. So Rap City, what it did for us nationwide cannot be denied. But it was definitely off the back of Ralph McDaniels and why it existed.
Yeah, and I had a chance to interview Lionel Vid Kid Martin, and how when I was looking at the documentary of Video Music Box, he said that he had tried to pitch it to MTV. Yeah. They turned it down, and then of course came up later with MTV Raps.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Hold on, I'm being harassed down here. Sorry.
No worries.
He wanted to be on camera.
No worries. We love the dogs to help control the pet population. Get your pet spayed or neutered. Rest in peace, Bob Barker. Now, I want to talk about this one gentleman that he doesn't get enough credit for what he does, what he did in hip hop. Herbie Lovebug.
Oh, Herb he's a visionary. Well, I think of Herb. I mean, I have respect for him as a producer, but what I really admire and part of him that inspired me is he was a visionary. Come on, what he did was so. Kwame, come on, Dana Dane, come on, man. And they don't talk about how heavy that crew was.
Yeah, I believe that was Idol Makers, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
named after one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, Idol Makers, and I think because of that movie, I also heard that was where Prince got the inspiration for the time.
He absolutely did. He absolutely did. I can confirm that.
And the crazy thing when you think about the time and Prince, how Prince had so much creative juice to where I'm gonna put together these satellite acts to
Yeah,
pump all this creative content that I want to get out, but
because
in
I
different
can't get it out.
forms, in different lanes.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Right around the Under the Cherry Moon tour, I think it was called the Hit and Run tour.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Prince visually, that's when we were wearing the suits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And look, and bring out a picture of Cesare from the Idol Makers. He
Mm-hmm.
based his whole look off of Cesare.
Right.
I mean, damn near to the T. He even took a picture of the exact same pose. And if you didn't know the movie, you would never know.
Right. And when speaking of Prince, I think really didn't really dabble too much in hip hop. He probably saw it from afar, but respected it. But it was where I heard it was a couple years ago after he had passed, they released the Bat Dance remix, and Big Daddy Kane was on it. And I'm sure it wasn't no issue because Cold Chillin' was a
Yeah.
subsidiary of Warner Brothers. So that was like
And
2 and 2.
Dougie in, and Dougie brought me in to his camp because we had hip hop sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And ain't like he couldn't do it, but he would be emulating. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He wanted the authentic raw, that bounce. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I got involved in his camp, through Dougie.
Wow, that's definitely crazy. I had a chance a couple of years ago to see Morris Day live. At the time, the only original members at the time that was performing at the time, it was Morris, Jelly Bean, and Monty. But just to think about how, with those three, Jam and Lewis, and pretty much
I've seen them. I saw them several times, the original lineup.
Wow.
And I know, and I could see why Prince was saying that's the only band I'm scared to follow. Because they were him. They were him. Everything they did on that stage, every note they played on that stage was Prince.
Yeah, which was dope, and which was kind of like you created the competition, really.
Yeah, you created your own monster.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we all know the story with Jamie Lewis after that, and being in the business. I was wondering, did you ever have any interactions with the late Clarence Avant?
I did get to meet him 2 or 3 times. First of all, he's one of my idols. He's one of my idols. Because when people try to say what Clarence Avant did, you notice it can't be done in one sentence. I call him the grand connector. He would take somebody from there and somebody polar opposite from there, put them together, some magic would happen, and he would get a percentage of the rewards that were reaped. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he had no boundaries, from presidents to murderers. Mm-hmm. He knew them all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And him dying, that was, honestly, I think part of him was dead after his wife was killed. I didn't see him coming back from that. Mm-hmm. But the couple of times I met him, he gave me no jewels of advice. I mean, ain't like he would talk nice to you. He wasn't that dude. He gonna give it to you rough, rugged, and raw. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everything is like you knew what he was giving you was nothing but love behind it.
Yeah, and he was from Climax, North Carolina, which is just outside of Greensboro, and with what he brought to the industry from Sussex and Dennis Coffey, Bill Withers, mm-hmm. Taboo with Sherelle, Alexander O'Neal.
Hold up, if we're gonna name Dennis Coffey, we gotta remember he made one of the most successful break beats ever,
Scorpio, which was sampled by LL Cool J for the Jingling Baby remix, produced by Mr. Marley Marl.
Absolutely. I grew up on that record.
Yeah, because I didn't find out Dennis Coffey was white until I saw the Black Godfather documentary.
I remember seeing him on Soul Train as a kid, going, "Oh shoot, I had no idea."
Yeah, which was crazy. How back then you didn't have the visual medium of video, where you really had to see the artist live, and a lot of labels, what they would do at the time when they would have a white act, they wouldn't put their faces on the album covers or single covers in order to keep the mystique. That's how they did Bobby Caldwell, rest in peace, Tina Marie, rest in peace. And then, of course, like I mentioned, New Kids earlier, they were on the R&B route before they got rerouted to pop, with Maurice Starr and New Edition. And I want to say this too. We don't give Maurice Starr enough credit for what he did for the game. I had the pleasure to interview him, and just to sit and think about This black man created the biggest pop group in the world,
Yeah.
discovered the pop R&B group that has spawned many of careers, still out and touring, still being a
selling
heavy
out.
influence, selling out 40 plus years later. Can we just talk about the impact of Mr. Maurice Starr, the general?
Look, man, I only met him once, and he had a thing about him that he knew what he was, and he knew what he carried, and he knew what he brought to the game. I think he felt somewhat slighted, but I'm sure his bank accounts did. He made a impact on this game that Lou Pearlman looked at and said, "Wait a minute, let me do that too," and that's how we got the NSYNCs and what was the name of the other group?
Backstreet Boys.
Yeah,
and we were talking about Full Force earlier. All I have to give, Full Force. I just want to be
the first one.
NSYNC cut. Even Britney Spears worked with Full Force. She did a record called "Love to Hurt Away," and to me, it was like a souped up version of All Cried Out.
Yeah, it was. That's exactly what it was. And like you said, Full Force is another production squad that don't get the love that they should. They wrote a lot of hits, bro. Their catalog is worth some money. I won't be surprised if they own their shit. I won't be surprised if the next major deal you hear about someone selling their rights to their shit is Full Force.
Yeah, and they did I Get Lifted for Barrio Boys, which was another group I felt should have had bigger success, but I felt they came out a little bit too early before the Latin pop explosion really hit in the US. Because had that album would have came out in, let's say, 97, they probably would have been bigger here in the US.
Probably so. But someone has to be ahead of the curve for the people to come behind. Sacrificial points.
Yeah, true. And just also too, like how I felt 3T should have been bigger here in the US, should have translated their success from Europe over here, with the work that they had on the Brotherhood album, early Robin Thicke, Herbie Creechlow. Go check out my throwback interview with Herbie Creechlow. If you don't know the name, then Sharon Studios, Robin, Ace of Base. He was a part of that whole movement along with the late Dennis Pop and, of course, Mr. Max Martin.
Yes, Max Martin. That's the king.
Yep, the king of the hooks, king of records. Now switching gears back to New Jack Swing, Gene Griffin. I heard plenty of stories of Mr. Griffin, that he was a guy that you did not want to cross wrong, and how you mentioned how a lot of those older industry cats, they talked to you rough, raw, gave it to you no chaser, and you didn't want to cross them because they'll probably backslap you, pull out a pistol, and say, "I dare you to do something."
Yeah, they were from that school. Gene Griffin, Val Hackett, Danny. I can't remember. Danny just got out of jail too. Underwood. He managed Slave and all of that. They were all from under the Nicky Barnes camp. They was all from out of that. They were like his youngins. You know what I mean? So they lived by a certain code. When you saw them, they always looked like $1 billion. You know what I mean? And their word was their bond, and they held you to the same. They held you to the same letter. And if you didn't make it to that letter, that was that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Val Hackett actually managed us for maybe 6 months when we were in transition in between labels, and brought us up to Bob Power's house, and we was going to record there. And he had a whole nother deal for us on Atlantic that we didn't go with. But those cats was real, bro.
With Bob Power, are we talking engineer Bob Power, the one that engineered the low end theory of Tribe Called Quest?
The one and only, one of the best engineers ever.
Man, that's definitely crazy. And how we were mentioning prior to coming on, we mentioned Pumpkin, how Pumpkin was the first super producer of hip hop, and you were saying that he predated Larry Smith and all the work Larry did with Houdini. So can we talk about Pumpkin?
Before Run DMC, before Houdini, there was a rap label, and knowing you already heard of Enjoy Records. They were out of Harlem. Pumpkin did all that stuff. The Treacherous 3, Feel the Heartbeat. He did that. He did the Funky 4 plus one more. That's the joint. He did the first Grandmaster Flash Furious 5. He did all those records, bro. He did Rockin' It, Rockin' It. All of that was Pumpkin. And he never They don't talk about him, man. And he was the first super producer. He was the first one producing multiple records at one time, and they were all hitting.
Wow, it's crazy. Then of course he put out King of the Beat, and I know
Yeah.
for a lot of DJs they would cut King of the Beat and mix that in with beatbox by Art of Noise. And the one thing about Art of Noise, especially also to Thomas Dolby, they were kind of earlier adopters in seeing what was going on over here in hip hop and saying, we're going to embrace it. We're going to tinker with it. I mean, I think Thomas Dolby did Mr. Magic's Wand for Houdini, right?
I mean, you got me on that one, bro. I wouldn't be shocked. When I think about the production of it, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah,
and then
I believe so.
You can't forget the other dude too. He was a punk rock dude. Then he started doing hip hop. Malcolm McLaren. Yeah.
They did Buffalo Gals. Yeah, with the world famous Supreme Team. And being from New York, was it difficult for folks to pick a side as far as what mix show you were going to listen to on the weekend? Was it going to be Mr. Magic and Marley Marl and Fly Tie and them? Or was it going to be Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out on Kiss?
Well, usually they were on different nights in the beginning, and Mr. Magic used to come on, and we can't forget the Awesome Two, dog, Teddy 10 and Special K. They were there in the beginning too. They were on the same station as Mr. Magic before Mr. Magic went to WBLS.
And that was on WHBI, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So everybody was on a different time. And as a matter of fact, I think in a week or two, Red Alert is getting ready to celebrate his 40th anniversary on the radio. And he is still on the radio.
Wow. And I also had a chance to interview Red Alert as well, just to think about how, hip hop started out as a genre of music where because of racist policies, because of underfunding of after school programs, of the social services to where kids and folks can't have what they need. You made something out of nothing. We're gonna take the power from the street light, go to the park, set up, have everybody come, dance. And you knew that if it was a party going on in the park, if something was going on in a rec center, a basement, an armory, you knew that, okay, it was going to be a little bit quieter tonight because for these couple of hours, everything was going to be all right. So can we talk about for you, seeing hip hop from its infancy and seeing it where it is now?
I tell people the metaphor that I use is I saw hip hop get smacked on the ass. I mean, I was a little dude. I was real little and probably didn't have no business being at a bunch of the shit I was at. But I was there, man. Like Raheem to this day from the Furious Five was like my big brother. We all went to school together. Him and Christopher Williams was best friends when we was kids in Truman High School. We all went to the same school. Me, him, Raheem, Rod Strickland, the basketball player, we all went to Truman High School. So, yeah, man, it's where I grew up was called the Valley. It's off, and when people don't even know the area of the Valley, they know Gun Hill Road. And it was right off, and how ironic that that's the name, because there was a lot of Gun Hill in Gun Hill Road. But, and we had a park on Haffen Park, but it's the real name, but everybody called it Valley Park. And everybody who was anybody from Flash to Breakout, the Funky Four. Matter of fact, our park was so popular that they had a Sugar Hill Day. When Sugar Hill was at the mountaintop, they had a Sugar Hill Day in our park. Wow. And we had a stage in our park, and that's what made it different. Like how Central Park has their band shell, we had a band shell with bleachers and everything. Wow. And that's kind of, and people don't talk about Valley Park like they tend to go, them cats played mainly disco back then. But everybody was using disco beats back then. You know what I mean? But Bam played our part. Anybody who was at Cold Crush 4 played our part. Everybody played our part because it was like the Madison Square Gardens of parks, just because the setup was so dope. You know what I mean? So seeing that and then going to the clubs, like I mentioned earlier, the T Connection, which was right off of Gun Hill and White Plains Road. Going to Celebrity Club on 125th. Going to the Black Door. Going to Disco Fever. I seen, Love Bug Starsky was like an uncle to me. You know what I mean? These cats, if you didn't know them, you was only a degree or two away, so it was like you knew them.
Right, and you mentioned Disco Fever, legendary club, and if you've seen the movie Crush Groove, that was where all of the stuff took place, and how with Crush Groove, and New Edition did a cameo for Crush Groove, and how Mike was talking about how, because at that time, hip hop couldn't really move around and tour because they couldn't get the insurance for the venues. You got to have insurance first before you go into these venues. So
Absolutely.
what they would do is that they would backdoor the rap acts to go on tour with them because you're guaranteed to get in with an R&B group as your headliner. And I also look at it now, it was smart because not only do you capture the female demographic with New Edition, you get the dudes because you got Houdini, Fat Boys, UTFO. You got to sit through the rap acts to get to New Edition. And maybe you may leave with a number at the end of the night if you're lucky.
We would do shows like it would be us, Heavy D, Troop, Kwame, Big Daddy Kane, Latifah, and EPMD on one show. Like they kept it really balanced. We'd be playing someplace like Minneapolis. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it was very they kept it balanced, and it was because of insurance reasons.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like how of course, just recently, right now, Tony is currently on their tour, and
we toured with a lot too. We toured with them a lot too.
Yeah, and they were talking about how they were on tour with NWA.
Yeah,
they were at that show when in Detroit. NWA got pulled off the stage because, of course, they were told you can't do that after police. They did it anyway, but just how back then it wasn't odd to see a rap act, an R&B act be on the same bill, and I kind of look at it as genius marketing.
No, absolutely, and it was a smart thing, and they did what they had to do. I don't even know if it was the sponsoring thought behind the booking like that, but because of insurance reasons, it made everybody look like geniuses. You know what I mean? And as far as Tony, I felt, first of all, let me say that they are some of the best musicians in the game. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm sorry, people. This cold is whipping my butt. They are some of the best musicians. Like, I'm good. They're exceptional as musicians. You know what I mean? Yeah. That whole Oakland thing, that Sly and the Family Stone thing, that Carlos Santana thing, that's in their blood. You understand? So, but we did a lot of shows with them, and we kind of looked at them as the West Coast version of us, because like we didn't exactly fit into New Jack Swing. We wasn't exactly hip hop. They didn't fit into regular R&B.
Yeah, they had a little bit of the elements of New Jack Swing from the debut album Who, which was produced by Foster and McElroy. And of course, they came from Club Nouveau, and then they turned around and created En Vogue, and I believe Foster and McElroy, they don't get enough credit for what they brought to the industry either.
Now, them cats had amazing ears, bro. They had amazing ears because they went out and found great acts.
Yeah, definitely great acts. And I was curious, have you ever had any interactions with Redhead Kingpin, who I thought was very underrated?
Yeah, I absolutely did. Me and him was really cool at one point. Yeah, we would all go to parties, and we all see each other in the parties. And I guess like all the record guys, we just hang out with each other. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, Red Kingpin, definitely very dope.
Good guy. I liked him as a person. And I can't say that about a lot of people in this game.
Yeah, and the thing about the industry is one of those industries where it's almost like a facade where you're going to look one way in public, be one way in private, and it's rare to kind of find somebody who's the same in the industry and the same out.
Well, the crazy thing is, it was like me and Eric, both of us was never the ones who was trying to be the most popular cat in the party. You know what I mean? We rocked with our crew. Now, some people thought of that as arrogance or aloofness, but it really wasn't. It was like we was both kind of shy. Like if you got to know either one of us, you knew it was like, oh, they rock with you to the end. So it was a lot of people that we met in passing that we didn't end up hanging out with. But the people we did hang out with, I hung out with more people than Eric. You know, because I knew a lot of people. You got to remember, I started roadieing for Unlimited Touch in the early 80s. R&B group on Prelude. I had 2 giant hits. I Hear Music in the Street and Searching to Find the One. And I was their roadie when I was 13, 14. So a lot of people in the industry already knew from then. So I was a little bit more comfortable in my skin. But, we, like I said, we always felt like the outsiders, and not that we bothered us. We preferred it. We knew everybody, but it ain't like I was calling Heavy like, yo, let's hang out. I mean, me and Chris was close because we knew each other our entire lives. You know what I mean? Me and Joski Love got really, really tight, But certain people, I just felt fully on. I felt nothing but authentic energy. Big Daddy Kane from the day we met, backstage at the Apollo. We just started talking, and it was like we knew each other forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's rare to kind of make a forever friend in the business. And how you mentioned Heavy D,
Mm-hmm.
Listening to those Heavy D and the Boys records, very good records, very well produced. And this guy here doesn't get enough credit for what he brought on the production side.
Say his name. Say his name.
Eddie F.
Eddie F.
Eddie F. Come on. If you want to come on Beyond the Album Cover, come on, man. I mean, the work that he did with Heavy D and the Boys, and later with the Untouchables with David Jam Hall, Neville Hodge, and
my favorite Heavy D record. You want somebody to love me for me. That bass line on that record, Eddie, that to me, that's one of the illest bass lines ever. Ever. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And dog, yeah, people like when they think Eddie F, they don't think producer. You know what I mean? And you hear Pete Rock and you think producer. And Eddie probably produced almost as many hit records as Pete. And that's taking nothing away from the genius of Pete.
Right.
And I mean genius when I say Pete, but Eddie, heavyweight in his own, bro.
Yeah, definitely that. And through the Untouchables, we got, I think, one of the most underrated male groups in R&B that should have been bigger, but for reasons or another, we never know. Intro.
I already know where you're going. I already know where you're going. I got an intro story for you.
Please share.
Okay. I was hanging out with Jeff and, Jeff and Buddy are doing shows. They're touring. So I went to a show they were doing and just hanging out and talking. And he was like, do you know we got our name from y'all? I was like, what? He was like, we loved y'all, and we saw your name was Entouch. That's how we named ourselves Intro.
Wow.
That bugged me, because stuff like that just humbles you, man. But you don't think about it, bro, or how you may have influenced somebody or made somebody feel like they can do it too. You know what I mean? It's not a regular thought.
Yes. Yeah, so you're just in the moment. And I had a chance to interview Buddy, and Buddy was telling me with Let Me Be the One. Originally, that was supposed to be for Mary J. and supposed to go on What's the 411. But for reasons or another, I guess it didn't make the cut and it was already turned in. So they ended up putting it on the debut.
Well, you know what? First of all, Kenny was an amazing writer.
Vocally a monster.
But he was an amazing writer. And a nice guy. Really nice guy. But outside of that whole thing, one of my biggest regrets, and I don't really believe in regrets. I remember coming home one day and my mother was like, some kid named Puffy called the house like 5 times looking for you. I'm like, word? So I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm in the house 15, 20 minutes. Phone rings again. I'm like, hello? Yo, Free, what up? It's Puff. I'm like, yo, what up? He's like, yo, I need you for this project, bro. Now, at this time, I was producing the group Whistle. Right? I was working on their last album. And they were paying me like 10, 15 grand a song. So Puff calls me like, yo, we got this chick named Mary from School Street Projects. I'm telling you, she's a beast, Free. She's crazy. We need that too hype shit. We need that. That's what we need on this album. Y'all set the tone. I need this. I need you to come up with a joint. I was like, well, what's your time frame like? He's like, yo, I need it like yesterday. I'm like, yo, bro, what's your budget like? And he was like, it's a little tight right now. I was like, yo, let me finish the Whistle project. And as soon as I finish that, I'll get at you. By the time I finished Whistle, dude, it was done. And I missed my chance to be on What's the 411.
So you would have been producing on What's the 411 along with Marky D and Corey?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. Because if you think about Real Love, Too Hype Energy.
Yeah, Audio 2 top billing sample.
Yes. So he went and found what he needed. But yeah, he wanted us to produce on our album. I was so busy, caught up in the money I was making off the Whistle project. I was like, I'll get at you. And every time I see his ass, every time, doesn't fail, he'd be like, I called you. I'm like, yeah, Puff, I know.
So pretty much get that Michael Jordan and I take it personally energy.
Yeah, he was like, Free, I called you. I called you. Yeah, you can't never say I didn't call you.
Yeah, you had your chance. And now what I want to go here and talk about is that we have New Jack Swing emerges in the hip hop soul. But before we go there, I want to talk about this band out of Buffalo, New York. Rick James set the standard for this band. You probably know who I'm talking
I
about,
already know where
who
you're
I'm
going.
going with. They're originally called Attention. They were signed to Island in '89, but the world got to know them as Joe Public, and Live and Learn dropped in '92. It set off a firestorm, and I felt they were so underrated. They should have gotten more success.
They had a lot of Tony in it. Because they were great musicians as well. And my man, Lionel Job, was their manager. He also was the manager of Arrested Development at one point. And yeah, they were dope. They were dope. I heard their stuff way before it came out. Lionel had played it for me. Because he was close to my manager at the time, Vincent Davis. And he had played it for me, and I was like, these cats is gonna hit. And when I heard Live and Learn, I was like, that's out of here. It feels like a nursery rhyme. Anything that feels like a nursery rhyme is gonna work.
And how you mentioned Arrested Development, I was listening to Speeches interview on Questlove Supreme, and they had talked about how Tennessee is sampled Alphabet Street from Prince, and how Prince heard the sample, and instead of saying, nah, yank it, kind of like what Gilbert O'Sullivan did with the Biz Marquee Alone Again Naturally record off the I Need a Haircut album, Prince said, just give me this, and we'll be cool.
I'll go. Well, I got the worst story for you. Outside of Biz, Biz is the worst because Biz ain't make no money off that song outside of show money.
All right, go ahead.
Nice and Smooth. Sometimes a lot slow, sometimes
Tracy quick. Chapman, Fast Cars.
Raped and pillaged them. Took everything on that song. And that's one of their biggest hits.
Now, is it based on how the deal is set up for sample clearance? Because I heard a story about when Diddy had gotten the sample for Every Breath You Take by the Police. I guess Sting had a setup to where, okay, I want this much, or I'm going to take it up front. Or are you going to give it to me gradually? Now, are most deals for clearances, is that set up by whoever owns the rights to the record and the label? How does that generally work?
Yes, like when people sample too hype, they have to call me for clearance. They'll call my publishing company or get directly in contact with me and be like, listen, we're going to send you the song. This is the portion they used of it, blah, blah, blah. Is it cool? And then I tell them how much percentage I want. And if they can't do it, if I feel the record's going to be big, I may come down. If I feel like it's something that's I want my money up front. So I'm like, nah, I need this. If y'all can't do that, sorry. You know what I mean? If it's a friend or something, that's different. But if it's somebody I don't know, you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, so it almost kind of feels like hip hop in the early days before you had to go above ground to get samples cleared. It almost kind of felt like where you had to hope the song didn't become a hit, because if it did, they were gonna come knocking and they were gonna go no Vaseline style on you.
We still looking over our shoulder for King Floyd, bro. We still to this day like, is it coming? I'm just scared I'm gonna walk outside my house one day and hear, suck it now, because it wasn't a real clearance yet then. Just record and put it out.
Now, when you all put the sample in, this was this pre SP 1200, or what were y'all using to put the sample in?
I love only you ask questions like this. You and Questlove, that's what y'all got to lock in. We did the whole first Entouch album with an FZ1, Casio FZ1, MPC 60, a S900 sampler, and a couple of Yamaha keyboard modules. The whole album we did with that, other than playing live bass and guitar.
Wow. So what was the sample rate time in order to get the sample? Because I know on some of those machines, because you only had maybe 3 to 4 seconds of sample time.
It was faster than a cat can lick its ass, bro. It was fast. So what you would do, you would speed up the record and then slow it back down to pitch. And you would make it super fast so you can get more in, and then once you got it in, you can slow it down.
So y'all would sample it at 78 and then bring it back to a 33? Exactly
what we would do.
Wow, that's definitely crazy. And you talking about the MPC 60. I was talking about the SP 1200 and how Large Professor, he took that machine, made it something, and he produced a lot of the main Source album, and of course Nas Illmatic, and how it almost kind of felt like with those early machines, how it was where you had to lock yourself in a room and it was trial and error to learn how to use it properly.
Well, you know who the sensei of the SP1200 is, though, right?
Tell us.
Easy Mo B, baby. Flavor in your ear, warning, all that. That's the SP12, baby. Wow. He did all them joints on that.
Wow.
He's an SP12 guy. Primo's an MPC 60 dude. You know what I mean? He won't even work on the 2000. He would give me the 60. You know what I mean?
Wow. And I don't know if you saw this video. There's a video floating on the internet. It just came out. I guess JD was getting some stuff together for a hip hop celebration or something for So Def. And he still had the box with all his floppies of all his sounds on it. I'm like, how in the world you manage to preserve floppies that's over 20 plus years old?
Eric is like that. He still has the original floppies for Too Hype and that whole first Entouch album. He has all of them. As a matter of fact, at one point, Sean Kane, works for Puff, called me like, yo, Puff wants to try to figure out a way to use Too Hype. Eric sent him the actual loops that we used on Too Hype. Sent them to Puff. And you gotta remember that they're all Mount Vernon crew. Eric lived here. Albie Shaw lived up the street. Puff lived like 2 blocks that way. Kev lived another 3 blocks that way. Eddie F, Pete Rock, they all was from, within a mile of each other.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think how the limitations at the time, technology-wise, of hip-hop and R&B produced classic material. Because I've heard when Teddy was making all of those hits on Guy, Bobby, Today, and all of that, that was in the Saint Nick's projects.
Yeah. I've been there. That was the projects. I played CeeLo out there. And that was the projects. Yo, believe it or not, a lot of the second Entouch album, we did at Eric's house. We took our advance money and bought a studio and put it in Eric's bedroom. And that's where we did a lot of the second Entouch album.
Now was the vocal booth the closet, or was it like the shower in the bathroom for the acoustics?
We literally built the vocal booth in his bedroom. So you can imagine how tight it was. Right? We had a board. We had a 2-inch reel machine, a vocal booth, our keyboards and everything set up in there in his bedroom.
Now, when you guys were making the album, was Electric good at just letting you guys be creative, or were they kind of sticklers saying, okay, we need to hear a rough cut by this time?
The first album, they just let us do our thing. But, you get a couple of hits, now everybody wants to be involved. And it was kind of the demise of Entouch, actually, because Vincent Davis got way too involved. Like, we had to go on the road or something. We came back and one of the songs was mixed and we hated the mix. And we're like, yo, this ain't right. And he wouldn't change it because he was the executive producer. So at that point, it was like, we stopped caring.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard when you're an artist that really wants to create and really don't want to have all the cooks in the kitchen, to find a label that just let you have room to grow. Like, okay, we're not going to bother you. Here's your budget. Just give it to us when it's done.
There's nothing wrong with feedback, bro. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't take my children and dress them and send them to the school of your choice. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if we're doing this as a collaborative effort, I'm going to pick the school. Give me your feedback. And if you tell me something about that school that's not right for my child, all right, we're going to find another school.
Right.
I just went through that. A record just came out today. CeCe Rogers, house club music legend. And he's like my big brother. And the single that's out right now, I produced, it's called Miracles. And the initial feedback today has been amazing, but I hate the mix. And I got no problem saying it because I said it to him. I was like, bro, when we do songs together, you can't put out records no more that we do together unless we both go, yo, this is it. That's perfect now. Right. Because I hate the mix. So I sat here the other night, and you hear me with this cold. I had 100 and something fever the other night. I sat here and did the remix for the single, and we did a main version with 102 fever, just because, again, it's like taking my child and sending it to the school of your choice.
Yeah. And speaking of rough cuts and mixes, there was an interview Dallas Austin did on Questlove Supreme, and he was saying most of the cuts on Cool Air Harmony were rough cuts. They weren't finished. They weren't finished.
But
I'm
that's
like,
why it felt like that. That was dope because with all that pretty harmony and all the polished vocal, the tracks were raw as hell. And that's what made it kind of work, bro. It was the best of both worlds.
yes.
No pun intended.
Yeah, still my favorite Boyz II Men's album, and you can hear on that album a lot of those cuts had Boyz II Men would have passed on. Easy could have went on the Highland Place Mobsters album.
Oh yeah, that because that Highland Place Mobsters album was crazy.
Fire.
It should have did way more than it did, but it was crazy. The crazy thing is I'm hearing all these stories. I only met the brothers once or twice, and they were cool when I met them. But the way I'm hearing everybody talk about Boyz II Men now, it's just like, yo, they just got full of themselves. They started treating people crazy. I hope that's just people's opinion and not facts. Right. I mean, I love their music, and nothing would change with me loving their music. But it's just like, yo, I don't care who you are, how hot you are. Like Drake is king of the world right now. One day he ain't gonna be king of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, as soon as this interview is over, I'm going right on Spotify to listen to his new album before I start working.
Right. And then another person I want to talk about that was right in the mix of the New Jack Swing era. You always saw his name in the credits along with all the Teddy stuff. And you probably know who I'm talking about, the late Bernard Bell. Can we talk about Mr. Bernard Bell?
Come on. There would be no Remember the Time without Bernard Bell. Teddy has said that. You know what I mean? He I don't know if he had the sponsoring daughter, but it took that collaborative effort for that record to be what it was. Mm. And I don't care what no one says. That's one of the best records of all time. Performed, mixed, produced. That record is flawless, bro.
Yeah, that Dangerous album, my favorite Michael album, and I also felt that Randy should have gotten more love and credit with what he did with Randy and the Gypsies. That album was nuts too.
Dog, that album was dope. And I was cool with a guy that was in the group, Chris Kello. He was a keyboard player who was originally in the system. He was one of the keyboard players in the system. He just passed away like a month ago.
Are you talking about Chris Kello, who was originally in the group Attitude? They had the Pump Up the Nation album. Vocalist Cindy Mizell, You Can Read My Mind.
You know what? You never cease to amaze me, bro. You just know stuff that's beyond your age.
Now, Cindy Mizell, is she related to the Mizells from the corporation?
I have no idea.
From Motown? Yeah, but I know that If You Can Read My Mind record, that record was one of those regional records where for the Quiet Storm, wherever it was called in your area, it was one of those records
Quiet Storm here too
that get heavy airplay.
Well, you know, and she was part of that all-star background singer crew, like her. I don't know. Do you know who Audrey Wheeler is?
I know who Audrey Wheeler is. Allison Williams, who I had a chance to interview as well. You know.
Yeah, well, Audrey's like my big sister. She was in the group Unlimited Touch when I was 14 and 13 in the roadie. And she was the one who would stop me from getting into the stuff I was trying to get into. And she's still like my big sister today. She tours with Chaka Khan now. She's one of the Chaka's background singers, and she still sings for everybody too. Wow, but crazy. That crew was the elite background singers. Her, Stephanie James, Cindy Mizell, Lisa Fisher. That whole crew, everybody wanted that crew to sing on their things because they was quick, they was fast, and they understood tonality, they understood blend, and they was in and out.
Right, and that was kind of the way for vocalists who would later become stars, you know, to cut your teeth. You know, Luther started out as a background vocalist doing the commercial jingles, did David Bowie, Young Americans. I think Phyllis Hyman, she did commercial jingles and later became who she became. And what was it about being a background vocalist that kind of caused you to say, okay, this is how I learn, so that by the time I become my own thing, I could apply it?
Well, you know, first of all, monetarily speaking, you know, you're doing commercials, you're making more money doing that than you are as a solo artist in the beginning. Mm-hmm. You know, they're walking into a studio for a half hour, an hour, and they're getting paid union rates and leaving with like $3,000 for a half hour work. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the money is overflowing. So you may be in the spotlight more, but it's going to take a while to match that money that you was making doing that. Right. You know, some people don't want to leave that.
Yeah, and how I want to circle back to Puff and Mary, and how with What's the 411, you definitely heard the hip hop influence on the record and the look, and definitely on the remix album. But it kind of started with this one song, they took the acapella vocals of this record. You probably know who I'm talking about and where I'm going. And
Uh-huh.
then this one break beat in hip hop that is still being used to this day.
Will
It
never
was
stop
the
being used.
yeah, it was the 52 Beats mixtape by the legendary Kid Capri. Came out in '89, where he
Mm-hmm.
mixed Something in the Way You Make Me Feel by
Stephanie
Stephanie
Mills.
Mills, and
Uh-huh.
Impeach the President by the Honey Drippers. And how that, if you can trace Mary, What's the 411, back to that.
You can go further back, bro. I remember hearing that beat from I was like maybe 10, 11 years old. Like it's always been there. It just got popular worldwide. But that was the record that when the MC was nice, he wanted that beat to rap to. And back in them days, you know, every crew had 2 or 3 DJs, and it was certain records that every DJ wanted to play because it got the crowd hyped. And that was one of them, Impeach the President. That record has been around the majority of my life.
Yeah, and it'll constantly be used as a breakbeat. And the one thing that I'm glad to see this time around with the 50th anniversary, that the fun era of hip hop is getting appreciated, and seeing Kid and Play getting their flowers and saying like these guys weren't corny at all. It was because of the tone and tenor of hip hop at the time that
First
we
of
really
all,
couldn't appreciate them.
Understand, Play was a street dude, dog. He was a street dude. He was out in the street, like streeting. You know what I mean? He cleaned up to do this because he saw his friends and his people going to jail and getting laid down. And he was like, wait a minute, that ain't sexy. Let me find something else to put my energy into. And here's another one. A lot of people don't realize that Kid is originally from the Bronx. Yeah, he's from up near Boston Road, not far from where I grew up. He went to Bronx Science High School.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So he you know, I was always really cool with him too, especially Kid.
Yeah.
And Tuffy. Tuffy was one of the hosts on Video Music Box. And he's also going to become an amazing actor and casting agent. He's actually the godfather of my oldest son. That's nice. Yeah, so you know, we would all hang out. We end up at parties, go to diners after the party, sitting there at 7, 8 in the morning, just acting up. You know, it's been a dope life, man. That era was a little different because wasn't nobody running up on us trying to snatch chains off our necks. I mean, it would happen occasionally.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you know, these kids out here now, they gotta always walk around with security. That I wouldn't want that life, bro.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that either. Now, one band, underrated, they were on the House Party soundtrack, Arts and Crafts.
They had a song on their first album. I can't remember the name of it, and I want to get my hands on their album.
Was it the What a Feeling record?
It may have been. If you got it, please email it to me.
I don't have it, but the lead singer of that group sounded just like Big Bub.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely did. I actually thought it was Bub when I first heard it. And but Arts and Crafts was dope. They was on Select Records, right? Or was it Motown? Select or Motown?
I think they were on, I want to say Motown, do not quote me, but another person out of the New Jack Swing era that I think, you know her name, you know her voice, the secret sauce, Tammy Lucas.
Oh man, come on. You know, she's doing house music now. I just saw something on what's the name of the site? It's like the House Music Bible site, because I told you my new project is all dance house music. And I think she did a record. I really think it's her. She did a record with Terry Hunter, who's one of the biggest people in that scene. Matter of fact, he did all the remixes for the Beyonce album. Yeah, Tammy Lucas, her voice was crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of her, the one track I played over and over on the Love album was the one that sampled Goodbye Love by God, which Mary sampled on the My Life album. And just to kind of think how New Jack Swing is still being felt, being relevant to this day, to where Puff took the Goodbye Love song from Guy and sampled it in the way it still sounds fresh.
After Bruno Mars, I really thought New Jack Swing was getting ready to make a super big comeback.
I thought so too, because when I heard Finesse, to me it sounded like a cut that was left off of Ralph Tresvant's debut album.
Yeah, I really thought that was going to be I really thought that was going to be, you know, but you know, he switched directions and went super R&B. You know, so, but you know, it's still, everything comes back. Everything.
Yeah, because when I listened to that 24 Karat album, you could definitely hear the influence of Don't Be Cruel all
Oh,
over that
absolutely.
whole record.
Listen, look at Beyonce, look at Drake's last album before this one, and look at Beyonce's last album. All that shit is Chicago and New York house music, bro.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons. Well, you know, I got my started. Our first hit record was a New York house record that just happened to go global,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the reasons why I decided to do a project. You know
Mm-hmm.
that, and my mother. You know, I lost my mother recently, and she wanted me to do a solo project. She was like, "You got to do one."
Mm-hmm.
So after she passed, I was like, "Okay." I'd already started. I started actually during the pandemic, but I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
what I was going to do with it. But then, me and Eric did the Tom Joyner cruise,
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of the house artists was on it. And I reconnected with like D Train and 10 City and Elias, who made Follow Me, um, Keith Thompson, who made Break for Love. And I was like, and then when I saw the people, and then, you know, I always work on every CC Rogers album because that's this big bro.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, and then I realized, you know, this nigga's been in Ibiza for like 2.5 months straight.
Mm-hmm.
Man, let me do, and I'm highly respected in the genre. So I was like, let me do this. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And that's how I wanted to do the first thing. I wanted to try something different. I did
Mm-hmm.
FaceTime Breakdown. That's not traditional house.
Right.
But you know, a lot of people said it reminds them of like Set It Off by Straight, that kind of energy.
Y'all want this party started,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Um, I did that, but the new single is getting ready to come out in like 3 weeks, and the name of it is I Am, and it features Roland Clark, who is a legend in the dance music game. He's on tour right now with Black Coffee, if you're familiar with who Black Coffee is.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, they get ready to play the Garden next week. And
Mm-hmm.
it's I'm real comfortable. There's no age restrictions. There's no you haven't done one of these records in 20 years. Nobody cares.
Right.
That music, I find that music very much in the same nature as like gospel music. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? As people dance and they dance to get away from life and get
Right.
away from stress. And
Right.
especially like you go to a party in Ibiza, man, or in Berlin, if you ever have a chance to go to one of them parties out there,
Mm-hmm.
that it's like church.
Right. And we're talking about house and how the Renaissance album, to me, it felt like an updated version of 90s house, but really the pioneers of house, at least from what I know it, was the late Frankie Knuckles and Larry Levan and
Yeah.
at Paradise Garage and how that started the whole movement of house. And then of course
Well,
Chicago, you
that's
go
what took
to
it national. That's what took it national. It had already existed because
Mhm.
it was an underground, you know, it was hugely gay.
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people, if you wasn't gay, you had to be open-minded and very comfortable in your own skin to go
Mhm.
to them parties. But I would go because I love the music. And
Right.
Larry Levan is personally, him and Timmy Regisford are personally responsible for my career because they broke without me. Without Timmy got us the deal, and Larry Levan was the first person to ever play it, and it went crazy. The next day, either Chuck Chill Out or Red Alert played it on the radio.
Mhm.
And then the day after that, Frankie Crocker played it, and it was out of here.
Now, was there or is there a difference between at that time house records that came out of New York, house records that came out of Chicago, and house records that came out of Detroit?
Yes, Detroit was more tech based, you know, more Grizz, more. I'm sorry, I keep wiping my nose, bro. I know this
No,
guy like.
it's life. Life happens.
But no, Detroit was more tech. Um, Chicago was definitely more like underground, grimy. You know what I mean? And Marshall Jefferson, I know you know who he is. Gotta have house music. You know, he's another mentor and big brother of mine. And all
Mhm.
these people are helping me on my project, by the way, that I'm mentioning. People are
Wow.
showing up here and there.
Wow,
And I'm also putting a lot of new artists on it too.
that's
But
definitely dope.
yeah, so but you know, them guys, they a lot of them didn't even know how to work the machines. They got what they could get out of it and then just put the record out and it worked. What
Mhm.
made Without You different for us than a lot of that Chicago stuff, it was the first house record, club record that the streets bought into.
Mhm.
You know, because again, we were hip hop kids, but we did a house record. So I still
Wow.
had a real New York swagger. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
would be nothing to pull up in front of the Palladium or one of
Mhm.
the hip hop clubs and pull up in front of Willie Burgers on 145th Street, and everybody's blasting Without You out their cars, or the drug boys, and everybody's out there blasting it. It was the first one that crossed over the mainstream. And I got another thing for you that you probably didn't know. We played the Paradise Garage the final night.
Wow.
We played there the final night. Because Without You was like their anthem. We played there 4 times in 1 year.
Yeah, that's definitely crazy. We mentioned Chicago House. You got to mention Jesse Saunders, on and on. Baby Wants to Ride. I think that was Jamie Principle.
Jamie Principle, and that's one of my favorite house records of all time because it reminded me of Prince. It reminded because it you know the way him and Frankie did it, it was a direct ripoff of White Horse.
Oh yeah, the laid back record that Monifa ended up sampling and touching. I think that was produced by Jack Knight.
I love the way you just keep going down the rabbit hole. But yes, but it had like a Prince element to it. So I was a big Prince fan, so I really liked that record. That and 10 City, man, like Byron is one of my favorite singers ever. You know what I mean? Like when you hear Byron Stingley's voice, you know it's him automatically. Right. You know, so like Devotion. 10 City had so many hits, bro. Yeah, That's the Way Love Goes. They had joints.
Yeah, because even though this record was a rap record, it had house elements. If you go back and listen to Queen Latifah's single "Coming to My House,"
that was a Jersey house. Yo, that was a house record that she just happened to rap on. And you see, they do it again. Look at little dude, Boosie Vert. Come on, his biggest hit of his career. That's a house record, bro. I can't remember it. I Just Want to Get Down. Ain't that the name of it?
Yeah, I think so. But you know, house music, you know, definitely should be up there, mentioned more, you know, especially given, you know, think of that run in the 90s you had with Robin Ness, CC Peniston, Martha Wash on the vocals for CNC Music Factory, Black Box, of course, you know, everything that came after that. And speaking of the whole thing with Martha Wash CNC, there's a documentary that's getting ready to drop on the 24th of October about Milli Vanilli and how, you know, even though Girl You Know It's True, Blame It on the Rain, great records, and I believe Kevin Lyles was a part of a rap group that did a record called Great or something. He was in Baltimore at the time, I think, and they ended up getting some points or something from it. But
Baltimore has their own style of house music. They have their own style. Jersey has their own style. Chicago has their own style. And you know, you see these other groups like Disclosure, where Sam Smith came out of it. They ain't doing nothing but soulful house, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? Shining it up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely that. And speaking of, you know, the Brits, and how I believe they do the best at really keeping R&B true, authentic, you know, because if we go back and we listen to George Michael's Faith album, and prior to that, the Wham stuff, it was the Wham stuff, especially on the Make It Big album, it felt like an updated version of Motown. I mean, Wake Me Up Before You Go had that same pop, that same bounce as those Motown records.
That song is my guilty pleasure. I love that song. Always have. Wake Me Up Before You Go. Always love that.
Yeah, but you knew George was destined for more than just Wham. And when
you know what his breakout moment was? George Michael's breakout, there was a 25th anniversary or something like that, special of Apollo. And George Michael came out and sang with Stevie Wonder and held his own. That was his breakout moment. Like that's when I was like, Wham is over. The second I saw that, I was like, Wham. And I had to be like 16 when that came on. I was like, Wham is over. Because he hung with Stevie. Not many people can hang with Stevie, bro.
No, because I remember as a kid watching Video Soul and seeing One More Try and I Want Your Sex and Faith on BET, and how that was the first album by a white artist to go #1 on the R&B charts, and he ended up winning the American Music Award for Best R&B Artist and Best
R&B. But it was a great album.
It was a good album.
No, it was a great album. And I think when he got with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, I wish they would have went in further with him, because that would have been incredible if they would have did a whole album on.
Yeah, because I felt if he would have did a full album with Jimmy and Terry, it would have sounded similar, if not better, than what they did on the Crash album for Human League.
Yeah. And like Human is another one of my top 10 favorite songs all time.
Yeah, great
I love our
record.
own Wheeler.
Great record. And if you listen
And
to
you know what's
that
another
record,
one that's dope?
go ahead.
And you're probably one of the only people I can say this to and y'all know the record. Remember the song Choose by Color Me Blind?
Mm,
I will live and die for
oh,
you.
Color Me Bad.
Yeah, Color Me Bad. You remember
Yeah,
that song?
yeah.
That's another one of my favorite songs. Yo, Jimmy and Terry. And if we talk about Jimmy and Terry, we got to talk about the Avila brothers. I don't know if you know who they are.
Bobby Ross Avila is Avila. Bobby Ross
They,
Avila, dope artist. I mean, his
yeah,
album, the My Love, La La Love, and then of course later their work with Usher and Confessions, the behind the scenes. Those two bad brothers.
man, listen, I just did a record with them too. Um, Me and them produced. It's a country act that we produced named Mike Smith, and Snoop is rhyming on it.
Nice.
The record didn't come out yet. It's called Get Some, and I actually met the Avila brothers through. I knew about them years ago, but I got cool with them through Mike Smith, and they just opened up a studio in Nashville, and you know Nashville is my second home. So I plan on spending a lot of time in that studio. But yeah, we did a project together. It was an honor for me because there's some of that's another crew too who don't get their credit, bro. Bobby and Iz, they don't get their credit.
No,
Jimmy
definitely.
and Terry give it to them. Jimmy and Terry give them their flowers. They should be mentioned in like some of the top 10 producer crews ever.
Yeah, and your thoughts on Usher headlining the upcoming Super Bowl?
Yes, that's my thing. I'm sorry, somebody's
no worries. No worries. But I also felt like it was gonna be a matter of time seeing how Usher is. Yeah, so when Usher headlining the Super Bowl halftime show, it just kind of shows, what he's been doing in Vegas, and then of course the work he's been putting in since he was a kid. Because I always felt the debut album should have gotten more love, more attention, but everybody really caught on once he got with JD and the My Way album.
Absolutely, and like I said, the only word I said when I heard he was doing halftime is yes, because I think he's been an icon and a superstar for years. And the Avila brothers are his MDs for his live shows. So I'm happy for them. That's the biggest stage in the world, bro. It gets no bigger.
All eyes are gonna be on you, and it's tough trying to figure out what's gonna be the set list for that show because you got hits on hits on hits on hits on hits.
And he only got 12 minutes. So, there's a lot to do. And he got some great people. Here's a question. Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Who do you think had the best Super Bowl halftime show
ever? To me, that I've seen, top two. Michael Jackson's 2. Number 1, Prince.
Yeah, we on the same thing. We're on the same thing. I think Beyonce was right there too. I'll give her the number 3. But yeah.
B is up there too. And another band that I felt was underrated, you probably may know who I'm talking about, or you may not. They were out of Oak Park, Michigan. They came out a year or two before Ready for the World. They were signed to Quest Records, Quincy Jones's label, Dream Boy.
Oh, Don't Go. It's one of my favorite songs, bro. I just sent that song. A friend of mine just was thinking about starting an R&B podcast. And I sent her that song. Like, you got to uncover treasures that most people don't know about. And Don't Go with one of them treasures.
Yeah, because I think what happened with them was, they, like I said, they came out before Ready for the World, but Ready for the World had that push from Electrifying Mojo, who was a radio legend, radio staple in Detroit. And of course, Ready for the World, awesome in their own right, great in their own right. Catch my throwback interview with Melvin Riley. And they pretty much were, when I look at that whole time frame, mid-'80s, everybody was pretty much imitating the Minneapolis sound, or at least doing their own attempt at it. And really studying what Prince. Go ahead, keep it a buck.
Ready for the World, whole first album was based off of one Prince song, Lady Cab Driver. Listen to Lady Cab Driver, then go back and listen to that first and half of the second. It was Oh Sheila is based on Lady Cab Driver. It's based on
I never realized it until you mentioned it. You can listen to those back to back and say, okay, they were definitely studying hard what was going on in Minneapolis.
Ceramic Girl on that first album, which I love that song a lot. I'm a Ready for the World fan, and I'm one of the people that love Melvin Riley's voice.
Mm.
You know, a lot of people don't consider him a singer, but I'm like his tone, and he knew who he was as a singer, and he mastered that spot. Let's like Aaron Hall. Aaron Hall may have a spot this big where his vocal range is comfortable. What he does in that space is inhuman. You understand what I'm saying to you? You ain't never gonna hear him hit no super falsettos or do no super baritones, but within that spot right there, he'll outsing anybody except Charlie Wilson and Stevie Wonder.
Definitely that. And then with this person, I felt vocally and production wise, she found her stride once she got with the late Reggie Lucas and the late James and Tume, Stephanie Mills. I went back and listened to her earlier stuff prior to getting with them. It was good stuff, but when she got with Reggie Lucas and James and Tume, that was when everything, really took off. Because you knew vocally Stephanie Mills could blow, but now at that point she had the records that really showcased vocally what she could really do.
Well, here's another story for you. Tunes was one of my mentors. I known him since I was 11, 12 years old. I went to school in Jersey. I got kicked out of the New York City school system. We don't need to talk about that. But I couldn't go to school nowhere in the 5 boroughs of New York.
Wow.
In junior high school. They kicked me out. My mother had to go to court to get me back in school in New York. But in the meantime, I went to a private school in Newark, New Jersey called Chad School. And Michael B. Jordan went there.
Okay.
After me, of course. But and Tune's kids, Ife and Fa, went there. And he used to talk to me because he knew I loved music. And then I think I mentioned to you before, I had a group after Entouch that never came out after we spent $2 million on the album, GHP. And I'm sure Jazz mentioned it to you when you did the interview with him, because he was in the group with me. And he actually came in and oversaw some of it when we was having beef with the record company. He was like the buffer, because they were getting in our way of what we was trying to do. And Tunes came in and chose our side and pissed the label off. But yeah, I knew him for the majority of my life. God bless the dead. He was an amazing, amazing man.
Yeah, definitely amazing. And because of Entume, we got Juicy Fruit and Juicy Fruit, Biggie for Juicy.
Yeah. And didn't want to do the record.
Yeah, and once again, bringing it back to Puff's genius to where he knew, okay, I need something sweet for the radio, for the clubs. Give me the hardcore stuff, put on mixtapes on B-sides. But we got to have something commercial. Puff was always thinking commercial.
Let Wu-Tang have the streets. Let's take this to the radio. That's what he was thinking. You know what I mean? And he was smart. Now, Wu-Tang, it was just such an enigma that they was able to do both. You know what I mean? Like, when you think about it, Wu-Tang is the Parliament Funkadelic of hip-hop. Think about what they did. Same thing George Clinton did. Same exact thing. We're going to put the Funkadelics over here. We're going to put Parliament on this label. Bootsy, you go here. Catfish, you're going to do a solo album over here. We're going to do a whole nother group called Uncle Jam's Army. You're going to be on that label. And they was just getting checks from everywhere. And that's what Wu did.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So Puff understood. He understood the balance between, he wanted to be classy, man. You look at Puff now, still classy. You know what I mean? Whether you love him or hate him, you ain't never seen him out here looking bad.
Yeah, like I said, the school of Andre Harrell, and I was looking, it was a video of a record called Come Do Me. It was GZA, it was pre-Wu-Tang, but when you hear that record, very, very similar to a Father MC record.
Yeah, well, that's when he was Prince Rakeem. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm a Father MC. Ooh. I haven't thought about him in a minute.
That's enough. Once again, come out of Uptown, and if you listen to the vocals of the "I'll Do for You" record, you can hear Young Mary J.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I was at that video shoot.
Oh, really? Do tell. Give us a behind the stage story of being on that shoot.
I was dating a girl that worked for MCA at the time, and I did something stupid, and she hated when I hung out with Christopher Williams. She hated it because I know when y'all two get together, you're going out in the streets being a hoe. And we were like, who, us? Never.
Mm.
So, but something happened. So
Mm.
I was like, let me go to this video shoot. And somebody from uptown had called me and told me about it. Anyway, now let me go
Mm.
by the video shoot and bring her some flowers because she worked for MCA and blah, blah,
Mm.
blah. And I didn't even know who Father MC was.
Mm.
And I walked in and they were doing that. And I was like, I saw Mary on stage. And of course, they wasn't really singing. But I was like, who's that girl mouthing that part? Is that her really singing? They're like, yeah, Uptown this side. Kurt Woodley told me. Yeah, I just bought her because he's the one who bought her. Him and Jeff Red is who bought her there. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So yeah, that's how I was there. So that was everybody was there. It was like a party within the party.
Yeah, and speaking of Jeff Red's album, definitely a sleeper album. Cover I Found Loving by the Fatback Band.
Yep.
And like you mentioned, gave us Mary J.
Yep.
And like I said, that whole Uptown movement, was something. And one group I felt should have blown up rap wise. Two females, you know who I'm talking about. Finesse and Sequence.
But that was the beginning. They were still they were the growing pains. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I got a trivia question for you. One day we got to do a show with this asking each other trivia questions.
Yeah, we definitely got to do that. R&B trivia.
Who was the first artist signed to Uptown?
First artist signed to Uptown. Was it Heavy D and the Boys?
A rapper named Fat Doug.
Fat Doug.
He was signed in. He's on somebody's remix. He's on Mary's first remix. One of her singers. Cat from the Bronx, really good friend of mine.
Mm.
He was the first Uptown artist.
And I didn't know this either. I went back and looked at the liner notes for the Living Large album, Heavy D and the Boys. Marlon Marl did a good chunk of that album.
Yeah, he did.
He was in the Uptown Kicking It video.
Yeah, but he was the dude at that time. Like Marley Marl, people talk about him, but they don't talk about him enough, dog. He was the Dr. Dre of that moment.
Yes, he definitely was. I mean, all the stuff he did with Cold Chillin'. He did a remix for Straight Up with Paula Abdul, which was really dope. And speaking of Cold Chillin', did you have a chance to see the Biz Markie documentary that just dropped on Showtime?
I cried like a baby, dog. I cried like a baby. I knew Biz was one of the first people I met. Like when I started like hanging out, going to parties a lot and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And Biz was authentically a beautiful soul.
Mm.
Like you'll never hear somebody go, yeah, I ain't like that nigga Biz. Unless they just a miserable person.
Mm.
So his story and the way they did it. And when I saw Rakim in tears, you know what I mean? Now you gotta understand what Rakim is to me. First of all, he's my favorite rapper of all time.
Mm.
I am so enamored with that man. I've been around him 30, 40, did shows with him, whole shit. I've never gone and spoken. Never. Because I'm just that he played that position in my life. Like there's never the two coolest people I've ever seen in my life is Rakim and Prince. I've never seen two. I had to end up talking to Prince because he was giving me a check. You know what I mean? But Rakim, he was just the epitome of cool, and he was the complete blueprint to the Jay-Z's, to the Nas. It was him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got to see him on the Force tour and still vocally sounding like he did back in '87 on Paid and Cool.
And the cool is still there. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody looking at Rakim and like, oh, that nigga's old. That nigga still like, and he give you the business if you want to see him after the show.
Right, and then also seeing LL on that tour for me, I think this was his first tour since the Nitro tour, and to see it where it was like, oh, he ain't lost a step. Don't let this Hollywood stuff fool you. I can still get busy if I want to.
All this talk about the GOAT, not only did he come up with the term, L is the GOAT. I don't care what no one says. I'm not saying he's the best rapper, but the all-encompassing of everything, L is the GOAT. He's been here longer than everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if it wasn't for him, no Def Jam.
Exactly. So he's the GOAT, man. He's the GOAT. He's done so much for the history of hip hop. No matter what you may think of him as a person, and I ain't got no problem with him. But every time I've been around him, he's been the most humble, nice dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
I got a lot of respect for him.
Right. And a couple last things because I want to get you out of here on. In the movie Crush Groove, before I believe it was the Fat Boys came on to perform,
Shout
there
out,
was a kid singing this record called Be My Girl. For those that don't know,
producer.
that's Chad, aka Dr. Seuss, Chad Dr. Seuss Elliott, who produced Stilo for 702.
Yes, and he produced a lot of other records. Like he was hot as fish grease for a minute, and he was being managed by Mark, who used to be my agent over at ICM, Mark Siegel, because Mark Siegel left ICM to go to Uptown.
Mm.
Yeah, now Chad is very talented brother,
Def,
very talented.
definitely talented, definitely dope. And
Who else I think is an amazing producer that no one talks about his production skills is Kwame. Kwame is dope as shit. Think
mm,
about the song he did for Monica, man, with Missy.
mm.
What's the name of that song, Monica? When Monica rapping, talk about through a brick through your car window.
So
You know,
gone.
yeah. Kwame produced that, bro.
And I think he did On Fire for 50 Cent, but I think he went under another name. I think it was K1 Mill or something like that
He
at the
may have been,
time.
but he's produced a lot of hits on the low, bro. I always thought he was exceptional, always.
Mm,
And he was another Prince fan too. So whenever we would get together, we would talk about Prince stuff.
right. And then I think another rapper, I think everybody is now starting to say, okay, this dude was dope. You always knew he was nice, but didn't really get mentioned enough. Special Ed.
Oh yeah, well shit. Another cat I did mad shows with, and he was always a cool, humble dude. He was the perfect, smooth, cool, laid back Brooklyn kid. Everything about him screamed Brooklyn. Only people I could think about that's more Brooklyn than him when I think about Brooklyn is MOP and Jazz. I mean Jay-Z, sorry.
Mm.
And Jazz on.
Yeah. Yeah, MOP is eating right now, thanks to the Ninja Turtles movie using Annie up. I mean,
NFL.
you got kids thinking about going 7:30 on somebody saying, come up off your lunchbox.
Yo, NFL, it's their theme song.
Oh yeah, Thursday Night Prime on
Yeah.
Amazon Prime. So hopefully Billy Dan's and Fame, y'all should be getting them checks.
I probably once or twice a week. Because a lot of his solo stuff, well, I produce songs for MOP too, but I always produce on his solo stuff a lot.
Mm.
And he's also one of my closest friends in the business.
Mm.
So me and him talk all the time. But I was like, boy, y'all having a hell of a year. But Andy Up is one of them records that'll never die. Will be gone, and that record will still be in somebody's movie. It'll represent an anarchy somewhere. That song will always be here.
Right. And then with the BET Hip Hop Awards, not the Hip Hop Awards, I think it was the award show. I was glad to see Busta get the Lifetime Achievement Award.
That was
to really see him celebrated. I mean, to think he started off in Leaders of the New School. I think the album was called Leaders Without a Past or Knowledge Without a Past with just another case of that old PTA, and to see where he went solo wise, and to see where now.
I mean, Busta always been a star though. From the first time you saw him, he was a standout.
Yeah, the camera just popped.
Yeah, he knew how. He's an entertainer,
mm-hmm.
and he's a groundbreaker. He ain't never dressed like everybody else. He ain't never tried to act like everybody else. He's always been his own thing, love it or hate it. And I'm glad he's finally getting his flowers because he needs to. When you talk about Nas and Jay, Busta needs to be mentioned in that conversation.
Right, and then Biggie, everything. And then the last thing I want to get you out on. She's going to go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
That's long.
From the 757, Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. Can we just talk about her and celebrate her for a minute?
Innovator. That's the word that comes to mind. Innovator. Always comfortable in her own skin. Even if she wasn't, you didn't know that. You know what I mean? And fearless. Think about every artist you think is great. The Busta Rhymes, the Missy Elliott's, the Princes, the Michael Jacksons, the Beyoncés. Fearless. Don't give a fuck what you think. This is what I feel. This is who I am. And I'm giving it to you. And that's why people resonated toward these people, because it's authentic and people feel authenticity, bro. They do. And hence they're like, she's the closest thing to Lauryn Hill. You know what I mean? Two completely polar opposites musically. But think about them, like they both could do every and anything.
Right. And Lauren Hill. Quick shout out to Salam Remy and Booger Basement. I
Yeah.
mean, what they were doing with the
Lon
Booger.
Remy, another amazing producer who doesn't get talked about enough. I'm talking about Amy Winehouse, Nas. You know what I mean? Like he did major, major stuff. And he should another person who should be constantly talked about. But industry people talk about him. The world don't know. But that's also part of his personality. He's very laid back, very cool. You know what I mean? And he's a music business veteran. His father was an executive.
Wow. Yeah, definitely proof is in the pudding.
And a good dude.
Great guy, great guy. So tell us about the new single that's going to be dropping and where can folks find it?
All right, it'll be out October 27th. The name of it is I Am, featuring Roland Clark, house dance music legend. It's a different kind of record, but I think it resonates with everybody. It definitely make you shake your ass. And I'm very excited about where I am musically, man. Like I haven't been in a creative mode like this. Like I could easily do 3-4 records a day right now. Or if I'm in the middle of mixing one, I'm creating another one when I need to rest my ears from mixing. I'm creating something else, and then I'm writing lyrics to something else, and then you know what I mean? Like I'm in that mode right now, and I don't know why I am, but you know, a lot of it makes me feel like it's my mother up there going, "Hey, boy, get to work," and this is throwing me all this creative energy. I don't know, but if it is, I just hope I'm making her proud, and you know, I'm blessed, man. And I try to stay in the gratitude. That's all I want to be is gratitude. I never need to be filthy. I just need to be in a moment of grace. I need to be forever grateful, man. I want to be in a moment of grace, grateful, and stay in the energy of gratitude, man. That's what it is for me right now. Me and my baby. Say bye, Momo. Say bye.
So tell us where your social medias are. Where can folks get the single
free_the dreamer on IG, Facebook Free Smith. Nobody under 35 is on Facebook anymore. Free Smith on Facebook. I don't think I got room for friends, but feel free to follow me. TikTok Free the Dreamer. Yeah, man, life is good, man. My family's good. I'm a grandpa now. My oldest son had twin girls.
Congratulations.
Oh, he's gonna be on the track for the rest of his life. He has no idea. I get to give him back. It's just like, you think when you reach these age, like when you get 50, you're like, oh, life is over. I feel like a kid on the inside, man. Like I'm very excited about what life could be. And it doesn't even matter how much further it goes. It's as long as I stay in the now of it and stay grateful. That's where I'm at, bro. I'm grateful for you, Jay.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you, man. And you can take 2 steps to the right and listen to this interview wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube at youtube.com/Beyond the Album Cover.
And remember, next time we do one of these, it's gonna be trivia, me and you, and I'm gonna bust your ass.
You're gonna get this work.
But I know you got cleaner mouth than me, but I'm a Bronx nigga. Don't ever forget that.
I know.
So I'm coming to bust your entire ass.
Hey, come with it. We go. I'm gonna hold you to that. Next time I'm gonna have you on, it's gonna be R&B trivia, and y'all can get the smoke too. If you're watching, if you're listening, I'm gonna come like Nas on Ether, and that is a bet. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, my brother Free. Thank you for coming on, bro. Salute.
Much love, sir. Jay, to you and your family, brother. All the best.
Thank you, bro.
All right, peace.